We're now joined by a good friend of Lucid Broadcasting, Bill Scott, author of the brand new book, The Day Satan Called. And I know some folks are going to think, what? What kind of title is that? But you actually had this amazing experience. So let's kind of start all the way at the beginning, how this even got started.
You know, I was working at a radio station at the time.
And this is a true story.
This is a true story, yeah. And I promise you've read very few books like this. It took me a couple of decades to have the guts to write it. But the phone rings, and it's this girl. She says, I'm about to be sacrificed. And just before Halloween, I'm like...
Yeah, I don't mean to laugh.
I mean, I did too. I'm sort of like... You know, I got another song. You got a request that you want to hear? And she's like, no.
This is a Christian radio station.
Yeah, you know, and she says, no, I'm going to be sacrificed. I'm escaping out of this coven. Can you help me? Wow. I'm thinking, well, I've never quite had a call like that before, you know, and she'd hang up, then she'd call. We were trying to find her. It took us like 4 days to find this lady. And when we did, witches and warlocks showed up, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm the most unlikely person, all right? I didn't know any of this stuff existed outside of, you know, a movie. Yeah. And they're in our studios, and police are taking them away. Church security's taking them away. It was a big church that the station was in.
I can imagine this is not the crowd that you would...
This is not the crowd I hang with.
It's not the pointy hats. This is...
No, it's just...
It's a rough crowd.
It is a rough crowd. And so everybody's gone, and there she is. And I had never experienced any kind of demonic activity in my life, not that I knew of. And this girl is just going nuts. And there's voices coming out of her, and I'm like, all right, I grew up in a real conservative church. We didn't talk about this, unless the missionaries from Africa happened to mention it happened. Yeah. And that was okay.
Once a year.
Yeah, once a year. And that was okay because that was in Africa, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm seeing this. And I'm thinking, what do you do? And I didn't even realize at the time Satan will try to intimidate you not to use the powers that God has given you, because that's the only power he really has over us. And I'm like, Jesus' name, no.
Yeah. Stop it.
And the demon's like, you know, I don't think so. And I remember looking at my friend going, well,
now what?
that was 20 years of church. I'm in trouble now. And we had to find somebody that knew what they were doing. Well, long story short, we ended up putting her into a safe house. For about a year. It was Teen Challenge, and they took care of her and really discipled her. At the same time, all these witches and warlocks are trying to find her. And it sounds weird. I've never even done a public interview like this where I'm telling this stuff, but our house became haunted. And again, I'm the most unlikely person. I mean, I just never heard of this stuff. I'm laying in bed, and all of a sudden, bam, the bathroom light comes on. My wife goes, turn it off. I went, oh, I don't think so. I said, something's wrong. We got to get pastors here. We got to get people pray over our house. I said, if they want it on for the night, they can have it on. I was not the courageous one. I'm not even trying to
They
come
like
across.
this station. Leave it on. Leave it there.
Leave it there. Yeah. But you'd hear the door start slamming in the house. This went on for like 3 weeks, and I'm thinking, okay.
Was the young lady in your house
No,
at this
she
time?
wasn't even there
so
anymore.
So she stayed with you?
Yeah, she stayed there for about a week or so before we got her into Teen Challenge.
Right.
I'm thinking, how is this possible? She's not even here. And I thought there's got to be an open door of some kind. I mean, I'm quickly trying to learn spiritual warfare 101. It's like I brought home the bride of Satan, and you know, first time out. And I went through this little black book that she had. I honestly thought it was witches and warlocks. It has name, dates, places. I said, I got to find out what's going on and why is this happening to my house and who is this lady? And supposedly she was pretty high up in the occult. And so I just picked a number at random. And I called, and this guy goes, hello? I said, you know Roxanne? And it just gets real quiet. You have her? And I'm thinking, sorta. Why? You know, and he goes, who is this? And I said, well, this is Bill. I work at a church and a Christian radio station. And he goes, do you have her? I said, yeah. I said, who are you? And he goes, well, I'm a pastor at the First Baptist Church, someplace in Indiana. And I'm thinking, really?
That's not what I thought.
That's not what I thought.
Even just sitting here, I thought it was
How
going to be...
deep does this Satanism go?
And I'm thinking, what's going on? And he goes, we had Roxanne here. And he goes, do you know what you're doing, son? It was an older pastor. And I'm like, no, I don't.
Lights are flipping on and off. Doors are closing.
25 years, he says, I've been involved with those that really need deliverance. And he says, I've never seen anything like this. I'm thinking, great. Yeah. You know,
and we're kind of laughing here, but this was a very serious thing.
It was very serious.
You and your family, you were scared.
We were scared for our lives because of the death threats. I had a couple of bomb threats at the church. you know. And then you'd see people looking for her and calling, and I had a call from another church that said, we heard that you know how to deal with witches. We have one in the basement of the church. Can you come over? I said, no.
Yeah, I've had enough.
I don't know. And I ended up going over, long story short. And it was a 17-year-old girl. And after a couple of days of dealing with her, she says, I got to leave. I said, what do you mean you got to leave? She says, I don't have any more power left. I said, what do you mean you don't have power left? They said, you've casted out a lot of my demons. She says, I was sent here to kill you, and I can't handle this anymore. And she was just gone, out the door, never saw her again. I'm thinking, wow, what have I fallen into? So, you know, the book, it is scary to read, but at the end of the day, we start talking about the battle that we're all in. Now, you may not take home a witch, and it wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
And how did this all kind of come to a head and come to a close? And
after 18 months,
because you're still sitting here, you're smiling.
Still sitting here smiling. At the end of 18 months, I met with this pastor. I said, I don't know what's going on. We're not getting control over this lady. And he just looked at me and goes, you're the one with God's call on his life. They're after you, not Roxanne. And he said, time to go ahead and just cut it right now. And it was amazing. I got home. I told some friends that walked with us during that time and said, we need to cut this for the time being. And she showed up seconds later. She already knew, had her car packed and said, I'm out of here. Well, I didn't talk to her for 20 years. So I'm finishing the book, and we actually had to have her sign off. I'm thinking, oh, Lord. So we start searching for her. It took weeks. Finally, she's on the phone. And it's funny because I'm writing the last chapter, and I'm putting, this book starts with a phone call, and 21 years later ends with a phone call. She's on the phone again. Man, my heart's beating. I'm thinking, am I opening Pandora's box again by talking to her? And to find out she's in church, she's done well over the last 4 years, doing a lot of therapy. And so there was a happy ending to it. But boy, the battle, never seen anything like it in my life before. Hopefully not again, but it is very real.
Now, was there an exact moment where you kind of just, I've read a little bit about how you actually confronted a spirit in your home. I mean, was there a point where you just said, enough is enough, and this is kind of like battleground, you know? And
it was. Well, you know, when our home was haunted for those few weeks, and at the end, I'm laying there, my wife's looking in like the bedroom mirror at the end of our bed, and she could see down the hallway. I know something's going on. I can feel it. I mean, it's the heaviness, you know. And I said, what's going on? She goes, oh, I'm dreaming. I went, no, you're not. She says, there is a black figure walking down our hallway. Now, I'm telling you, I know people think I'm crazy at this point. I would have thought I was crazy. That's why for 21 years I never even mentioned it. I thought, you know, if it kills me, it kills me, but I'm going to ask why it's here. And I remember just getting up and saying, in Jesus' name, why are you in my home? And as loud as we're talking now, it said, I'm an invited guest. Not a good sign.
Yeah.
And I said, you get out in Jesus' name. And leading up to that, I kept hearing, look underneath Roxanne's bed where she had stayed. And I just thought maybe I was going crazy. It was fear. I didn't realize it was the Lord going, hey, there's something wrong. There's something underneath there. And when I talked to that spirit, I did ask, I said, in Jesus' name, why do you feel like you're an invited guest? And it said, have you not looked underneath Roxanne's bed? My heart stopped. Said, you got to leave in Jesus' name. It did. And I went right to her bed, didn't even look underneath. I knew right where to pull stuff out. And it was her robe as a witch and jewelry. Man, I took it out on the porch at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm pounding it into pieces. I got my barbecue going. If it could, go up. I don't know what the neighbors are going on.
Barbecue and witch clothes.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to find that in some secret recipe.
Bill,
for the
what are you
South.
doing out there?
I'm just barbecuing some rope. But it was, I mean, I was so scared.
And was that it? Did that kind of close the door?
It stopped it. And that was the opening that gave those spirits right to our home. But when we took away that open door, it was gone. And she did have an old car on our carport. I thought, I got to move this. Now, all that's missing is the organ music at this point. 3 in the morning, we've gone through all this. So I get in the car and I sit down. It's old car. And I just think to myself, don't look in the rearview mirror. You've seen the movies, right?
Yeah.
And I could feel something in the back seat. I'm telling you, I know something was there. So I'm sitting there. I got the door open with one leg out so I could ditch, put the car in reverse, and I just kept thinking, don't look in the rearview mirror. But it's like trying not to look at an accident, right? And I never did look in the rearview mirror, thank God. But you could see me going down the road like this with one leg out, I'm telling you, I wasn't Mr. Courage.
And real quick, we only have about a minute left. What would you say to people who could, because this is a real thing that some people do deal with. My grandpa was a bit of an authority on this.
He was.
And he was very clear that he said, look, if you don't have the power to take authority over this thing, leave.
Yes.
Move. Because it's gonna torment you. So what advice would you give to people?
Yeah, and that's good. And I've read your grandpa's books, and he's right on. You don't have to put up with Satan giving you a beating. Yeah. And that's what he was doing. There's open doors. Find somebody that has authority, that knows what they're doing, and let them walk with you. But things don't have to go bump in the night, and that's good news.
That might be a better subtitle or title of the book next time. Things don't have to go bump in the night.
That'll be the sequel.
Don't listen to him. If you want to connect with Bill, the book is called The Day Satan Called, and the website's thedaysatancalled.com.
Yep, there's a free chapter there for anybody to grab.
Find an easy link to that website at ours, harvest-tv.com. Don't go anywhere. Harvest will return right after this.